Sure, well, careful before. Let me careful before. Sarah, we are streaming now, so it's fine.
Everyone. I see folks filtering into the room, so just a quick intro before we get on to the main program. My name is Sarah Hetke. I am one of the board members with Social Media Breakfast Madison, and so you'll get to see the rest of our board members in a little bit, but welcome. Thank you all for coming. Great crowd here today. I would love to see, by raise of hands, who has been to one of our events before, either online or in person. All right, lots of return folks, and so those first time here. All right, well, we've got a good mix of folks in the crowd, so again, welcome and thank you for joining us. For those who have not been here before, a little bit about us. We're a nonprofit focusing on social media and digital marketing, and we host our in-person events the third Wednesday of the month, so make sure to mark that on your calendar and get signed up for our e-newsletter so that you can see all the topics that we will be talking about. And as promised, here is the rest of our board. We are a volunteer board, and these are all the folks that help plan the events and vet speakers, nonprofit spotlight applicants, all of the things that you see here at our events and in between times. These are the folks that help make it happen. If you are a board member and you're in the room, raise your hand, give a little wave. All right, so if you are interested in learning more about Social Media Breakfast Madison or how you can get involved, definitely go visit one of those folks. And you can connect with us, hashtag SMBMad, all the channels that we are on. We also have a Social Media Madison Masterminds Facebook group, so make sure to join that. Ask all of your questions in between times when you're going, oh my gosh, we're gonna hire a freelancer for the first time. I wonder who else has done this and what kind of information they've put in the contract. I wonder who is struggling to pull metrics. Definitely join the group and ask those questions. There's a great crowd in there who can help out. And this month's nonprofit spotlight is Dimensions in Sound and the Studio Orchestra. So again, toward the back of the room, raise your hand if you are here with them. I know I saw them. Oh, there you are. Yes, okay, you're in the middle of the room. Overachiever, great. So if you have not already visited with them, they have a table out. And make sure that you stop by, visit with them, and learn what they're all about and what events they have coming up. And here are all of the sponsors that make our events possible. So thank you to each and every one of these folks. They all contribute in very valuable ways to make sure that our events happen each month, from name tags and signage to event locations and breakfast. Really appreciate all the folks who make these happen. And with that, we have to give a big thank you to Alex. He has been our photographer for quite a while, but is moving on and will no longer be doing our event photos. So we have Caleb in the back this month. He's covering for us. Thank you, Caleb. But we are looking for an ongoing photography sponsor. So if you or someone that you know is looking, this is great exposure for newer and upcoming photographers. You get a shout out at our events, in our e-newsletters, things like that. And of course, you get to help us have really beautiful photos. And with that, I'll have Andy from Dream Bank come up. Really grateful for their sponsorship so that we have a place to host our events each month.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and good morning, everyone. My name is Andy Frisky. I work here at Dream Bank, and I thought of a little spring joke I wanted to share with you. Some of you may be familiar with this one. April showers bring May flowers, but what do May flowers bring? Bingo. Someone's been eating Laffy Taffy. All right. Can't wait to tell that one to my son. Thanks so much for joining us here today at Dream Bank. Any first-timers here, out of curiosity's sake? Everyone's been to Dream Bank? Okay, a couple folks, rock and roll. So we're a free community resource that's put on by American Family Insurance, and everything we do is meant to ladder up towards the inspiration and pursuit of dreams, in large part by removing barriers for individuals. So how that breaks down is essentially threefold. The largest part of it is the events that we host. So we host right around 15 free events a month that are all through the lens of personal and professional development. I head up a lot of our business programming, but we also have a lot of events in regards to overcoming barriers or obstacles in your dream pursuit. Our content calendar is painted right on the far end of the breakfast island there, just to kind of get a good snapshot of what we have coming up the rest of the month of April. But we have a really nice, concise list on our website, which is amfam.com/dreambank. Right beyond that, where the red chairs are at, some of you may have been eating breakfast there, that's our drop-in co-working space. So it's a shared communal area that's first come, first served. People are always able to come in and have a quiet place to work. Our hours of operation are Tuesday through Thursday, 9 to 5. And then all the way at the back of the space, we have a very robust and interactive exhibit. It's all rooted in positive psychology, meant to embody some of the beliefs and values of the company, but some really cool intrinsic takeaways there that all ladder up to building your dream. Lastly, we also offer up this space to community members to host their own events outside of our programming, such as Social Media Breakfast Madison. So if you are interested in learning more about that, hosting your own event here, please go ahead and find myself at the end of this event. And with that, I will kick it back to Sarah.
Great, thank you, Andy. Let's give him a round of applause. We really appreciate having a place to host these events each month, so appreciate their ongoing sponsorship. And really appreciate Sal's. They've been our breakfast sponsor for the last few months. Who enjoyed breakfast? Round of applause. Yes. I know I do. I have to get up early to come in here, so I love having a breakfast. And they put on a great spread each and every month, and it's always something just a little bit different. So it's been great to have them on board. And also just want to give a plug that they do catering. So if you thought this was a great breakfast, you're looking for pizza at an upcoming event, they can do catering for you as well. And we give away a Yola's Cafe gift card, so stay tuned to find out how you win it. This month it'll be a little bit of a mystery, but you'll learn by the end of the event how and who is going to win that. And without further delay, I'm going to turn it over to our main speakers and the reason you are all here today, learning how to build better content calendars.
Good morning, SMB. We are S and B, stands for Stephan and Brady. We are a strategic marketing agency here in Madison. We have over 70 years of experience working with both local and national brands. I'm Brett. I'm one of our associate creative directors. And I've been writing social media since it was a thing, since the very beginning. I was working in Silicon Valley the day that Facebook dropped on that community in beta form, and everybody laughed at it. The programmers, in particular, they were laughing at the terms of service pages, because they were telling me, I was a little babe in the woods back then, that Facebook, if you sign up for it, they will track everything you ever do online for the rest of your life. Even back then, we knew that was going to happen. Now, I think social media has actually turned into a wonderful marketing tool. It's democratized the whole space. It lets small guys play with big guys, direct to consumer. Products can compete with Nike, in the same places with the same production values. So I think it's turned into an absolutely fantastic thing. But the data tracking is a little unnerving.
And I'm Sarah Curry. Background about me, I've been creating and managing social accounts for clients for the past 15 years, previously at Edelman, and then for the past 10 years at Stephan and Brady, where I'm the social media director. And my social origin story, I started at Edelman in 2009, which was a pretty different time when it came to social media. At that point, you were pretty much just connected to people you knew in person, which feels very quaint, and limited opportunities for brands. So when I started at Edelman, they were actually about to launch the brand Slim Jim on Facebook, which was one of the first brands in the Edelman global portfolio going on Facebook. So pretty amazing to think about how much has changed in the past 15 years when you now consider the number of channels and opportunities available to brands and companies today. So I think that's a good segue to where we'd like to start. Before we talk about building content calendars, we want to just sort of ground ourselves in the scope of the space. So So it should be no surprise to anybody here. There's a lot of content shared and consumed on social media every single day, which also then means that there's enormous attention for consumers, enormous competition for consumers' attention. So the average person uses 6.7 social media channels per month. I actually asked my husband last night when I was reviewing these notes, how many do you think? And he said 0.5, so he was a little off. He's not on social. Obviously, a little bit different over here. And then the average person spends 143 minutes per day on social media, and you can see on this chart here the amount of content that's shared and consumed every minute of the day on the internet. So 625 million TikToks watched every single minute, or 66,000 photos and videos shared on Instagram. So again, a little bit of competition out there for consumers' attention. But if you can break through all of that and reach your audience, the rewards are definitely worth it. So we know from research that 76% of consumers are using social media to find brands and products, and 41% of small businesses depend on social media as a revenue driver. So then the question is, how do you break through all of that and stop the scroll and reach your audience? So we have 5 tips today we're going to talk about for building a better content calendar. So we're going to spend the rest of our time digging into each of these, and then we have a lot of fun examples to show you as well. So our first tip is to uncover your universal truth. So this is your content North Star. So what is the universal truth that as a brand or a company you're speaking to? So ideally this would be outlined in your social media strategy, which is a great foundational document that every brand or company should have in place. It helps ensure a few things. One, that all of your social content is laddering back to your brand and marketing objectives. And then 2, that your social content is aligning with those brand core messages. So how do you uncover that universal truth? So we have some thought starters or questions to ask yourself as you're helping to find this. So what makes your story unique? What does your audience care about, and what can you say to them to impact or change their behavior? What do you want your customers to think about your company? And then I think most helpfully, or most importantly, take a step back and really look at your brand as your customer and what do they feel, because that's really the embodiment of your brand. So you can distill that down to 1 to 2 sentences that is a through line in all your social copy that doesn't have to be actual copy. This universal truth isn't exact copy you're sharing on social media. Again, it's just that guiding North Star or that theme that ties all of your content together. And then once you start to hone in on that universal truth, the next thing I would do is come up with some loose content guardrails or ideas that demonstrate how the universal truth comes to life. And again, these can be a part of your social media strategy. So map out your tone of voice. What do you want your brand to sound like? I like to usually come up with like 4 to 5 adjectives to describe what your tone of voice is and isn't. Your personality, what does your brand feel like? You can even give it a persona if that's useful. An example of this from a brand I worked on long ago at Edelman was Chef Boyardee. We were helping launch them on social media, and their goal was to build relevance and affinity with 2 very different target audiences. They had moms and tweens. So you have moms who are trying to still control their kid a little bit, but want to help build their confidence, and then you have tweens who are trying to exert their independence, but still want to feel safe. So how do you speak to both of those audiences? So the persona we developed was the voice of the uncle. So he was a trusted confidant to mom without being, too stuffy, and then he's also that supportive, safe role model for tweens. So that's just an example of like giving it an actual persona can be helpful to help think of that in your mind as you're creating content. And then lastly, I find it useful to create content pillars. So these are like 3 to 4 overarching content categories that guide your content creation, ladder back to your objectives. They're a great starting point then each month when you go to create content. You can look to those pillars as a starting point. And just a quick example here, looking at local business Jackknife, if you all are familiar with that. So they're a fast casual takeout sushi spot from the owners of Red. And I think they do a really nice job with their social media. So if you look at their website, you can tell that their universal truth, it's literally spelled out, is just good sushi done fast. So they're aiming to kind of revolutionize the takeout sushi world. So they're using more premium ingredients. They have bigger, bold flavors, non-traditional sushi. And then that translates through to their social with bold colors, high impact photography. They have a really modern voice. And then when you look at their content, you can definitely see they have clear content pillars, like I talked about. So first, obviously, they have something, a pillar focused on the menu, appetite appeal. They're sharing what specials they have, or they have reels that are showing just their beautiful food or photography. Then they have a clear content pillar focused on education. So because they are a little bit different than a traditional takeout sushi spot, there's a bit of education that goes with that. So you can see they have a recent reel all about what makes their tuna different and special and more premium. They also have reels talking about their takeout and their online ordering, because it is a bit of a different process than your traditional takeout sushi. And then lastly, they have what I would call just kind of like lifestyle, like things like consumer milestones, like a leap day post, or, they feature some local influencers or their employees, or they jump on a lot of different trends, like the recent trend of I'm blank, of course I do blank. So like they had, we're sushi lovers, of course we carry chopsticks in our purse. So just, again, those are three distinct content pillars that all their content is falling under and is laddering back to that universal truth. And then we have some other examples that Brett's going to talk about.
So first we have Duolingo. They're a language learning app. For those of you who haven't seen this green owl in your TikTok feeds, that just means you're not on TikTok, because this thing is everywhere. Basically, why don't you play it real quick, Sarah? And they're on their way to teach the girlies how to flirt in French. And basically, the owl comically and cutely terrorizes everything it comes in contact with. The Duolingo folks drop it into man on the street or owl on the street scenarios, and they watch the feathers fly. But it's not all aimless fun and games. Their universal brand truth is learning a language can be fun. And learning a new language, though, for most of us, is not fun. It's hard. It requires a lot of rules to follow, but nothing about this owl seems hard. It seems very informal. It communicates if learning a language can be fun, this dumb owl company is probably the one to do it. Learning a new language can be fun is their North Star. Next we have Yeti, which is a little more straightforward. Let's play this first one. Ask yourself, what do you think of when you think of the Yeti brand? For instance, did you know that they make tote bags? And if you did, what would you assume? You'd assume that they'd be super useful, super tough. And there. And this next one is a little more straightforward, a little more on brand, a little more online with what you'd expect from Yeti. This is a tough activity. The backpack is clearly waterproof. They're pouring ice into it. And it's also that these two badasses can enjoy a beer on top of a mix-up. So their North Star is the right gear can help you stay out longer, travel farther, and in the case of these two, live harder.
Okay, so we talked about a lot of competition for consumers' attention, and they're inundated with content. And then, thanks to algorithms, as I'm sure you all know, consumers aren't necessarily even seeing everything that you're posting. So our second tip is to leverage your universal truth and then tell that same story over and over and over again. So this could be repackaging the same content in a different way. It could be recutting a video and with different clips, for example. It could be leveraging the same message in different formats, so as a text post, in a video, as a meme. It could even be taking advantage of a trend and then putting your own spin on it. So this, again, is where I think that content pillars are really useful, because if you know the key messages you're trying to communicate every month, then it's just finding different ways to tell those same stories. Another great way to put this into practice is to throw spaghetti on the wall. So perhaps you have a quarterly or monthly brainstorm and you throw out ideas, no bad ideas, just see what sort of sticks, and then test some things out and see what works and then optimize from there. And then lastly, look to your feed. So obviously seeing what other brands and influencers are doing can be really inspirational. The one caution is not to force your brand into a trend that doesn't make sense, which is something we'll talk about a bit more later. And then remember that you're only just seeing a fraction of the content that's out there. So your feed is a great starting point, but it's just that, it's a starting point. So use that and then maybe see where it takes you and explore from there. And then the last caution here, before we talk about some examples, is that yes, you do want to tell the same story over and over again, but obviously if something's not working, don't continue to repeat that. So make sure that you're leveraging insights and learnings each month to find different ways to reinvent that content.
So Celestial Seasonings is a tea maker, and Sleepy Time Tea is their flagship product. So this is the opposite of the high energy owl. Their mascot is a Sleepy Time bear. That's literally his name, the Sleepy Time bear. And his universal truth is we can all use more sleep. And they tell this story over and over and over again in slightly different, but mostly the same ways. For instance, you see the same image, but different copy. Normalize eating dinner at 3 p.m. and being in bed by 8. Me as soon as it hits 5 p.m. And they do this both statically and in reels. My beige flag is that I will be in bed by 9 no matter what. Work till 8:30, in bed by 9. Invited to go out, in bed by 9. Laundry pile on my bed, that's the laundry pile on the chair now because I'm in bed by 9. And this last one sums up perfectly what they're trying to do. I have one undeniable vibe, and it's this. Time there again. Over and over, slightly different, but you get the point. Their teas make you sleep. Then we have Vital Farms. They're focused on bringing ethical eggs and butter to the table. You may recognize them from their striking black packaging, which we'll see in some of these examples. And they use a lot of different ways to get their main brand values across. First, we see their free-range chickens, just free-ranging it. Next, we have a nice little piece of guerrilla marketing. After Twitter was infamously renamed, they put up a bunch of out-of-home advertisements. This is a bus ad. And it says, "Roam free, little bird." And then the post says, "Hello, San Francisco. In light of a recently birdless social platform, we decided to take the opportunity to talk about some other birds who get to roam free too. Our girls. This weekend we'll be taking over San Francisco with one message. Roam free, little bird. Live the way our hens do. You'll be able to spot us around the city on a truck with a digital display, along with building site projections, urban bus shelters, and EV charging stations. Keep your eyes peeled for us." They've also got recipes. This is a tasty looking pear and scrambled egg pie. And then they also do profiles of their farmers. This is Case. It says, "Case and his wife Caitlin are hard at work raising their family and their hens at Jones Valley Farm. When we asked this duo what's your favorite part about working on the farm, they both were quick to respond, being around the animals." And then that post continues. Case says, "A lot of people think farmers are cruel to animals, but why would I treat something that helps provide for me cruelly? We treat our animals right here and really care for them the best we can." I think that's just awesome. And then finally, we have a nice little DIY piece about how to turn your Vital Farms cartons into a nice little bowl, so you can upside them. And we're not going to watch the whole thing, because that's 5 minutes, but it's pretty cool.
All right, so tip number 3. So love to talk about our own brands or companies. We know that it's really not about us, right? It's about our audience and connecting with them. So if you're going to talk about yourself, then you have to make sure it's something that your audience will find engaging. So that's why this tip is to consider the shareability test, and that's to make sure that every post you share informs, assists, or entertains. I've also heard that referred to as the NPR model. So if you think about them, they're sharing great content every single day, so then you don't mind when they talk about themselves a little bit and host their pledge drive. And it's because they're providing that value every single day that you don't mind when they're talking about themselves. So how do you put this into practice then? You need to start by having an understanding of your target audience, who they are, what social channels they use, what content they're consuming, what are their interests. If you think back to the Chef Brady example I shared, there was a lot of research that went into those developing those insights about moms and tweens. So first, start by doing some research on your target audience. And then on a practical level, with every post that you're sharing, you can ask yourselves the following questions, and these come from a really great social media expert, Rachel Carton, who has a Substack called Link in Bio. If you don't already follow that, I'd highly recommend. So ask yourself with every post, will my target audience feel something when they see this? And that could be any emotion, it could be motivation, it could be excitement, it could be inspiration. Will this post build my community? So will it make people want to stop and share or comment? And then is this post providing some sort of value or service? So it could be linking to an article or piece of thought leadership on your website. It could be an explainer video that breaks down a complicated topic, whatever it is. So with each post that you create, the goal is to aim for 2 out of the 3 of these questions.
So this OPI TikTok is a nice example of something that is entertaining and informative.
Hate the removal process. Then you need our pre-care gel technology. I'm Victoria, and I have my PhD in polymer chemistry.
So Sarah tells me this is a very relatable piece to anyone who's trying to take off their own gel manicure. It makes them feel seen, apparently.
I have them on right now.
Oh, you get to take them off.
I'm going to have a professional take it off, but maybe I could watch the OPI video.
Anyway, this is clearly informative. It's getting into the science of how the product works, but it's also entertaining and even assisting, telling you where to get it if you think it's something that will work for you. And then, next we have the best one, the National Park Service. They use adorable animals as a vehicle to communicate important safety information. We see this cuddly looking bear that's probably just dropped a salmon or something, but it looks like he's waving. Maybe he's waving for him. And they give us real important info, like what to do when you really do see a bear out in the wild. Read in all caps. Please don't run from bears or push your slower friends down in attempts of saving yourself. As a follow-up to our previous post, if you come upon a stationary bear, move away slowly and sideways. This allows you to keep an eye on the bear and avoid tripping. Moving sideways is also non-threatening to bears. Do not run, but if the bear follows, stop and hold your ground. Bears can run as fast as a racehorse, both uphill and down. Like dogs, they will chase fleeing animals. Do not climb a tree. Both grizzlies and black bears can climb trees. I'd have to see a bear run as fast as a racehorse before I believe that can happen. But I guess I'll take the National Park Service's word for it. But yeah, I mean, that's just awesome information that everybody should know, but it draws you into that, cute little waving bear. And then we've got an owl doing something adorable, but I'm not going to read it because it's not as funny as the waving bear.
All right, so tip number 4. It's one thing to know what you want your audience to know about your brand or feel, but what are they telling you? So that's our next tip for you. So how do you look to your audience? Well, first, to start, track comments and responses from your fans. So this is both qualitative and quantitative. So if you look at hard analytics, track the number of engagements, engagement rate on each post, see what's working. I find it useful to build like a tracker. I just use Excel or Google Sheets and track post by post data. Look at it by content pillar, content type. You can categorize it. So then on a monthly or quarterly basis, you can take a step back and look at the overarching trends to see what's working or what needs to be optimized. So maybe you notice that you get more shares on posts, or you have a higher share rate when you share reels versus when you post a link post. So that can be help you optimize your content and your post strategy. And then from a qualitative standpoint, monitor the anecdotal feedback as well. So those are comments from consumers. Maybe it's in your post or post mentioning your brand. Again, that can help you optimize. So maybe they literally are telling you, hey, we want to see more content like this. Or maybe you post something and they're confused by it and they're talking about that in the comments, and then you need to create more content on that topic. So that's great feedback to help you optimize your content, but it can also be used as inspiration. So that sort of anecdotal feedback can be mined for content ideas. So you could turn comments into user-generated content. I've done that before. Like, we'll have people leave reviews, and I'll reply on a breakfast meat company that we work for, and I'll comment back and be like, can we use this in an upcoming post, and then literally turn their comment into a piece of content. You could also maybe find maybe inspiration for a new content series through, you never know where inspiration is going to strike. So definitely look at the comments and that anecdotal feedback as well. And then also pay attention to user behavior by doing social listening. So there are a lot of tools that do this at a range of prices. There are some really robust ones that are higher end, but then there are also some that are free or pretty low cost, like Hootsuite or Mention. You want to see what your consumers are talking about outside of your channel, because they're not always going to tag you or mention your brand correctly. So how are they talking about when you're not paying attention? So do some social listening. Maybe you see that your consumers are using your product in a different way than you expected, or maybe they're even poking fun at your brand, and you could turn that into something. Show that you're on the inside and you get it. twist that into those insights into content. It's also a great way, social listening, to pay attention to what your consumers care about outside of your product category or your industry, and that can be useful for coming up with relevant ideas as well.
And we're back on the owl because they do a great job of this. Let's play out. And it says, well, you're just trying to do your work without being terrorized by an owl.
How am I supposed to live life loving these conditions?
So Duolingo is a perfect example because the owl started off innocently enough. They just showed you a cute owl as a friendly, knowledgeable mascot, become as wise as a young owl, you might say. But people started interacting with it in the comments. They started using it in memes. They kind of started egging it on. So Duolingo ran with it and turned it into this adorable little badass and their North Star, and they did it all because of social listening. And then we've got Dunkin'. They're saying me tomorrow, and Pumpkin is back at Dunkin'. And they're showing itself in a basic flannel, ready to start living that basic pumpkin spice life. Along with their fans who don't care that they're basic, because for them, nothing is tastier than pumpkin spice of the fall. And Dunkin' knows this because they read it in the comments.
All right, and then our last tip is to be trendy yet timeless. And what we mean by that is to find ways to create ownable content. So this could be an ongoing content series that's unique to your brand. Maybe it's a very defined creative look and feel that you apply to all of your content. The goal is that someone sees a post in their feed and they know it's from your brand without even having to look at the name. And this is useful for a few reasons. One, it's a great way to stand out and stand the test of time. And then two, it also puts into practice the idea of telling the same story over and over again. And that doesn't mean that you should never create trendy content or leverage memes, but think of how to do so in a way that feels ownable. And we have some great examples of that coming up. So how do you put this into practice? As we talked about, content pillars are a great way, a great starting point. So you can use those to brainstorm some ongoing content series that feel unique and ownable to your brand. Again, trends definitely are a great and easy way to create content, so definitely monitor for those, keep your eyes open, see what makes sense based on your social strategy and your content pillars. And then when you do identify a trend, just make sure that you're, again, finding ways to make that ownable to your brand. What spin can you put on it that is unique to your brand? And then lastly, in our client work, one thing that we're always trying to do is find ways to make sure that our social content is integrated with the rest of our marketing or advertising efforts. So that's another great and easy starting point. Are there things that you're already doing that you could just adapt and turn into a content series? And we have an example from one of our clients, Jones Dairy Farm.
So yeah, this is the client that Sarah and I work on. We do all of their social together. It gave us the idea for this whole presentation. And let's play their honest to goodness campaign that we do for them.
From a mom, I know that's nutritious. I know that the ingredients are the best that you can get. You can feed your families with confidence and know that they're gonna love our products. So
Jones is family owned. That's Lisa. She's a 7th generation Jones. She's also their marketing manager, and she's a mom. And there she is feeding tasty Jones food to her kids, which she can do confidently because Jones really is it's a great product. They use only natural ingredients. Their biggest competitor is Jimmy Dean, which shoves a bunch of crap into their stuff. And they're family owned. Jimmy Dean is not. It's voiced by a long dead man who was not a family man. So there's lots of really good ways for us to differentiate Jones from their biggest competition, being family owned, all that kind of stuff. So this stuff is instantly ownable for that reason. And then also we take that campaign and we slice it up a dozen different ways on a dozen different channels. We take pull quotes from it, turn them into a static ad. There's Lisa doing it. There's her stepdad, Philip. He's a 6th generation Jones. He's the CEO, chairman of the board. And we do a bunch of stuff with him in kind of the same way. And then you just use it 6, 7 different ways, telling the same kind of stuff over and over again in slightly different ways. And then we've got some other examples. This is the Milwaukee Public Library doing a Barbie thing. Why don't we play that? Trying to read as a kid in America. So anyone who's seen the movie recognizes this scene. It's Will Ferrell and his goons chasing Barbie through a soulless office space. And they've been doing some really wacky stuff on TikTok, the library has. And everyone is fluent and wacky and absurd on TikTok. So this is a great example of sticking to your universal truth. Reading is fun, but doing it in a way that's perfect and on trend for this channel. And then we have Yasso. Yasso makes yummy Greek yogurt bars. And as you can see, they have a very trendy look, but whether they're using product shots, packaging, or they're out by the pool, it always looks like a Yasso shot. This consistent look is instantly recognizable for their fans, and it starts the brand awareness jersey for potential customers.
All right.
And that's all, folks.
That's what we have. Thanks for we look forward to your questions, first of all. And if you want the full presentation or a summary of this, we have a QR code. It'll take you to our website. StephanBrady.com/SMB2024 also gets you there. So we'll leave this up while we answer any questions that you all have.
All right, so I'll come around with the microphone, but real quick, for those online, we'll have the full presentation available to you. We had a couple mic issues, so presentation will be available for those that are in person and online. And with that, I'll come around with the mic, but raise your hand if you have a question. First question, anyone?
I was just wondering if you could talk about your process for starting with a client, especially one who has no idea what the answer is to any of the questions that you just laid out. Like blank sheet of paper, what's your process? How long is the onboarding? How involved do they have to be for you to feel like you can be successful on their behalf? And if you could just like kind of walk us through how you approach that.
Yeah, we work with clients in a lot of different ways. Some where we're just working on social, some like Jones, like we showed, where we're doing their whole advertising and marketing efforts. So the client involvement can be of any scale. Usually we do just like pretty in-depth discovery session when we have a new client, and that we walk through like a marketing brief, ask them all sorts of questions on like if any data exists on. Obviously, it's best case scenario if they have a lot of existing data on who their audience is and sales, whatever that we can dig into, and if they have some of that in place. So we usually start with a discovery session and turn that into a creative brief, and then from a social standpoint, I use that to start a social strategy. So that's really the first step, and that's a pretty collaborative process with clients. And it's going through, looking at your marketing, the marketing brief. What are your marketing goals and objectives? How does that translate to social media? What then, who are we trying to reach? And then, some of the other steps that we talked about.
Okay, I'll ask a follow-up.
Yeah.
Hopefully other people have questions. What do you do if everything you're finding out does not match with what they're saying on their website or in their email marketing or in the world? Like, do you work backwards? Like, they hire you to do social, you're doing all this research, and you realize that the story they're telling on their website is not the right story. Like, how often do you have to work backwards to make sure that they're actually putting forward like a cohesive message moving forward?
I don't know that we've ever actually encountered a situation where we've had to like.
With small enough clients.
But we do obviously want to make sure everything is aligned. So like, on like Jones Dairy Farm, for example, we are making sure that the message that's on the web, they actually just redid their website. So like Brett and I think through how does that then translate? What do we need to optimize and change about our social strategy? Because we are changing, the website. And then same thing if we're, each year when we're doing planning from a broader integrated advertising standpoint, we're then thinking of how that translates to social media content, and then if we need to optimize our strategy. But I can't think of a case where we've had to go backwards.
Yeah.
All right, first question. And that means you win our coffee gift certificate. And now everyone else is
So you said you have 3 to 4 if you're posting every day. How often are you going back to that story?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. How often are you
repeating your content pillars?
Pretty much every for Jones we have 3, and pretty much every single piece of content we share falls under one of the 3 of those. We keep them; they're not so defined that they're not super narrow. We keep them relatively broad, and then basically have subcategories underneath. So you can make them. Every brand is a little bit different, but for a lot of them, I'll have the 3 or 4 overarching categories and then sub messages within each of them. And so pretty much all the content we're sharing falls under that. What I will say is we do create like a post breakdown, like what is the ideal content mix, and that's different depending on the channel. That can be different depending on the season. So certain times of the year we may want to emphasize one content pillar more than another, and that's something that I track and monitor for clients. So looking at what content pillars are performing best, does that mix need to optimize? So everything falls under them, but the mix can be different depending on the seasonality and the especially the channel too, because obviously what works, like for example for Jones, their Facebook audience is much older, as you would expect, than our Instagram audience. So what we post on Instagram is different, or the mix is a bit different than what we do on Facebook.
All right.
All right, in the back.
What is a response or an answer you've given to a client who asks to go viral?
So to repeat the question, what do we tell clients when they say I want to go viral? And this is a very real question. Right. I usually just die a little inside first. I usually let clients know that, that's not a goal that we can, that's not a quantifiable goal. But what we can do...
Unless they want to pay for it.
Unless they want to pay. I mean, yes, certainly you can pay to go viral, but if you want to do that organically, usually it's making sure that you have a sound strategy and that you have a deep understanding of your audience and the channel you're posting on. And that's where the magic lies, because you want to make sure that you're hitting that sweet spot of having the right message with the right audience on the right channel.
And I mean, it's a matter of scale too. I mean, viral for a tiny little, local client is going to be something completely different than a big national, So you try to manage it that way. You try to set realistic, large sounding goals, but realistic goals. And that's how you do it.
What's a good mix between paid content versus organic when you talk about your content calendar structure?
The mix between paid and organic. So everything we talked about is organic. We our paid strategy, we have a different team who handles that. We are very integrated. So everything that so that's like the Jones example we showed you, the video was a paid spot, and then we figure out how do we take what's happening in paid and then translate that to organic. So obviously everything that we're doing from a paid standpoint aligns with our content strategy. We would need to optimize our content strategy on social if we came up with a crazy campaign one year that really didn't fit. But everything that we're doing is, they're cohesive, and then we're just figuring out ways to take what we're doing on paid and, make sure that the look and feel matches, make sure that the messaging matches. How can we then make the content work harder? So the quote examples we showed were literally just stills and photography that we captured at the same time we did the campaign content. So it's just finding ways to be really efficient and make sure everything is cohesive.
Questions? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us this morning. Our guests are going to stick around, so if you've got a couple burning questions that you just didn't want to ask in front of the group, feel free to come up and chat with them. Just a couple more slides before we wrap up. We have our QR code up here so you can connect with us to learn all about becoming a speaker, volunteering, nonprofit spotlights, all that you see up on the screen. Go ahead and scan that QR code. You can find more information about that as well as on our website. And I mentioned mark your calendar, just ongoing recurring event, third Wednesday of the month. We're always here. But in May, we'll be talking 5 strategies to cultivate work-life harmony. May is Mental Health Month. And if you all are anything like me or the other social media managers, I think mental health needs to be front and center. And to our Yola's Cafe winner, bring your certificate down to redeem it for your real gift certificate. And thank you for being the bold person to ask the first question. And with that, thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you all here again next month.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for sure.